Entitled people demand too much. I'm your host, Tite. Let's read about a bunch. Our first one is from Arrowrins. I moved out of my parents' house last year. My parents have kept my childhood bedroom as it is, with all of my old toys, belongings, my clothes, etc., because I go home to visit most weekends and help around the house. This includes some collector edition Barbies and dolls that my dad bought for me when I was younger. I keep them in their boxes, stored on a high shelf. There's about 10 dolls, some of which are collector's items now because of their age and condition. I haven't thought about selling them because I just like keeping things my dad bought for me. I guess I have an attachment to them because he worked in the US while we lived in Canada without him, and toys were given when he visited us. This past weekend, I was visiting my mom and she brought some of her friends over. One particularly entitled friend, Jane, brought her granddaughter, a 5-year-old. I told my mom not to let the child up in my room after I had a bad experience with kids taking my belongings and breaking them. I stayed downstairs and worked in a room. Eventually, I heard Jane taking the granddaughter upstairs. I then heard them opening doors and talking. I didn't go upstairs until I heard her say something about dolls. I went upstairs and asked them both to leave my room, but Jane was already in my closet at this point and pointing at the dolls. Of course, they pointed at the boxes of Barbies. She pulled one off, showed it to her granddaughter, and told me she wanted to play with it. When I told her, no, it's in the box for a reason, she seemed irritated at me and handed the box back to me. She left my room and the child started crying and saying she wanted to play with dolls. I went through my things, found some of the dolls that I'd opened as a kid and played with, and offered them to her downstairs, but she kept insisting on the princess doll. They didn't go back upstairs, but it left me a little anxious now about my room. My mom's telling me to put a lock on my door because Jane visits often and tends to wander around. But I'm baffled that she would go into someone's house and think it's okay to touch their stuff. I'm from a South Asian background, by the way, and this tends to be the attitude of some older women. They don't understand collectible culture or sentimentality to gifts. They think they're able to do whatever they want, open whatever they want. Edit for extra info. We installed a lock this morning on my bedroom door and my mom warned her friend not to go in my room in the future. I live in a very small condo. It isn't big enough for me to bring all of my belongings there. I've left a lot of clothing and personal items with my parents. I can't help but wonder how Jane would feel if, I don't know, one of her guests came over and then started going through her room, her closet, and acting like her stuff should be given to those guests' grandkids. I feel like if that were to happen, Jane's attitude on the situation would transform extremely fast. This next one is by Neo1881. My wife and I used to live in Hawaii and had a house on the Big Island. One day, I got a call from a friend, Lena, who used to live in Oahu, but then moved to San Diego. She called me saying that she was now a traveling nurse and had to make a decision ASAP about whether to take a job on the Big Island or on the East Coast. She needed to make a decision within 30 minutes and it was for 3 months, and wanted to know if she could stay with us and pay rent for that time. I asked my wife and she said, fine, it will be good to see Lena again. I called her back and said it would be fine for her to stay with us for that time. Then she tells me, oh, by the way, my boyfriend will be coming with me too. And also I'll need a car too, because I can't afford to rent a car because I have a $500 a month car payment here in California. That was a bit of a shock, given we had agreed to her staying with us alone, and now there would be 2 of them. She also asked if we drank coffee, and we did, so she told us she made a 12-cup pot every day. She ended up going through all of our coffee in about a week after she arrived, and Kona coffee was $18 a pound. So Lena and her boyfriend arrive, and he seems nice and grateful. Then, a new wrinkle was that she would be doing a 12-hour shift, so her boyfriend would have to drive her to work and then get her afterwards, making 2 trips each day. I figured out that it was 60 miles one way from our home to the hospital she worked at, which meant 120-mile round trip and 240 miles each day, with 2 trips down there. She'd be putting at least 960 miles a week on our car. Then she added that her boyfriend would go fishing during her shift and stay in town, but then also wanted to know where we could get some pot because her boyfriend liked to smoke pot while he went fishing. That was too much to ask, knowing that her boyfriend would take our car, drive it around town, and be stoned part of the time. We started arguing about it, and after about a week, she found another place to rent, closer to work, and I said that giving her a free car to drive around was too much to ask. She finally agreed to rent her own and went no contact with us, and we called her about when she would return our car. She also complained that the Honda Accord we loaned her did not have AC working. Well, she eventually returned the car, but never informed us when. Just a final text message that, "It's in your driveway." Never paid us a penny for her first week stay in our home. Talk about entitled friends. Update. And the second day they were in our home, she asked, "What is the nudity policy in your home?" She wanted to prance around nude. Nobody have ever asked the question before, so I did not have a ready answer. Update 2. Prior to this, she was a generous friend who always invited us to stay in her home when we visited Oahu. Went out of her way to make special meals for us and seemed like a normal, sane person. We lost touch for a few years and then she called out of the blue and asked to reconnect. We had no idea she would make such outrageous demands after we initially agreed to let her stay with us. We were kinda stunned by her new demands and tried our best to accommodate her. Living with her was a whole different story. We did our best for the sake of our friendship, but it became too much once she lived with us. I feel like this is the prime example of you give them an inch, they'll take the whole fucking mile. I mean, you gave this woman a place to stay, but then she had to +1 it, then she had to take your car, then literally I don't even know how long she held this car hostage, but it's like absolutely fucking insane that people can be this entitled. And our final one is from Gossamer Lady. A few weeks ago, my neighbors moved rather suddenly before they sold their house. This left their house empty, and they worried about it looking empty, so they asked if I could go over every once in a while and turn on the lights, maybe shovel the walk if it got snow. You know, make the house look lived in. I had no problem doing this, as they had been great neighbors, and I was sad to see them go. That same winter, I had a toddler, a baby, and I was pretty decently pregnant, around 7 months along. My husband also worked a lot out of town, so about 2 weeks out of the month, I was on my own with my brood. So my ex-neighbor must have let the realtor know that I was helping by turning lights on and off and shoveling the front walk if it needed. Realtor shows up, I will call her Ronnie, and introduces herself and thanks me for my help. Great! She must have also gotten my number from ex-neighbor because soon she started texting me requests. This ranged from dusting the house, turning on certain lights, etc. ahead of showings. I went over the first time she asked and swiffered a bit and turned on the requested lights. She texted me later how she was disappointed at how dusty the house was. I ignored that text as I didn't give a hot damn what she thought. Then the requests became an everyday thing. She basically wanted me to set the house up every time she had a showing. I had my kids and was very pregnant, with a high-risk pregnancy. I wasn't on bed rest or anything, but I had to be careful. I ignored all of these requests. The kicker came when we got a heavy snow. I'm talking a good 1.5 feet of heavy, wet snow. Heart attack snow. Ronnie the realtor texts me at 8 p.m. that she'll need the driveway cleared by the next morning. The absolute audacity was audacious. I responded to that one, asking if she was out of her mind, that I was 7 months pregnant and no way was that happening. She asked if my husband could do it. I said he was out of town. She said, "Well, you'll have to figure something out." Excuse me, madam? I sent her laughing emojis and went back to what I was doing. Well, lo and behold, Ronnie the realtor was at my door the next morning, knocking like she was the cops, full on fist banging. I opened the door in my pajamas, whilst still using my baby bump to hold up my baby as he nursed. Irish twins are fun. And just stared at her. She actually had the nerve to say, "I thought I told you the driveway needed to be cleared. I have a showing in a half hour." I told her to lose my number and shut the door in her face. I then called my ex-neighbor and told her she better put a leash on her pet realtor because I was about done with her. She was horrified and promised me she'd take care of it, which she must have done because I didn't hear from Ronnie the realtor again. I did, however, enjoy watching her high-stepping it through all that snow. I can't help but wonder, I already know the answer's most likely a resounding hell no, but if that Ronnie the realtor was even gonna offer the OP anything for basically doing the job that the realtor should have been doing to begin with. Like I said, it's most likely a resounding hell no. It seemed like she was looking to maximize her profit and minimize that workload. But I'm really glad OP put their foot down. Alright, that's enough entitlement for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Entitled People. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.